Okay, for example, the word man. The word man in the Hebrew is actually translated from 5 or more different Hebrew words, and those words have radically different meanings, okay? The primary definition of man is from the Hebrew 120 and 119, which means to show blood in the face. Okay.
And let me say something about those words, because I was going to bring that up tonight.
Okay.
Talking about the concordance.
Sure.
When we look at Strong's definitions, he does not give the parts of speech usually.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't tell you this word is a verb, this word is a noun, this word is an adjective.
Yeah, sometimes he does, but not always. Yeah.
Right. He expects you to know them or be able to tell them from the definition.
Right, or from the usage, yes.
Right, and I've seen a lot of people point at 119 and 120 and say, oh, this is 2 different words. And it is 2 different words, but it's the same word.
Right.
Okay,
meanings of the same
one
word.
is a verb and one is a noun.
Right.
It's that simple.
All right. Right. Other words from which man is chosen in the Hebrew is the word ish. The word ish does not mean to show blood in the face. It simply means male or man-child. So as in Genesis 4:1, where Eve says, I have gotten a man from the Lord, that word is ish. It's not Adam. So she is saying, she's not saying that she had an Adamite child when she's describing Cain. She is simply saying, I've got a male child, and my goodness, I have no idea what race he is. Okay? And other words for man are 1167, which is the Hebrew word for Baal, okay? And that usually means Lord, or head of household, etc. Number 2145, Zahar, which means male or man. And 1538, my chicken scratch here is bad. Gulgaleth, which also means man or head. Okay, so we have 5, and there's others. These are just 5 of them that I'm bringing up, and that the King James Version translates all of these words as man, not making any distinction among them or between them, and therefore we are being misled. Right. And actually the occurrences, the words that are poorly defined or poorly translated aren't that many, but there's some very, very critical ones. Man is one of them, okay? Another one of the critical ones is Gentile, okay? And the word Gentile in the Hebrew is translated from the word goy. And the first definition that the Strong's Concordance gives is foreign nation. Now, the fact is that definition is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, Sayer and Strong and even Liddell and Scott, okay, have some church definitions in their lexicons.
Right.
And Liddell and Scott a lot less frequently than, and they'll always qualify it, NT. Yeah, meaning that's the way they understood it from the church.
Okay.
When the word does, because there are some words in the New Testament that do not appear in Greek writing prior to the New Testament.
Okay.
Okay, and they're very scarce, but there are a couple. And the only definition we have is the church one. Now one is heterozygous. Yoked with somebody of an alien. To be yoked together with an alien.
Right.
That word does not appear in secular Greek.
Okay.
But I have to look at how it was used in the Septuagint and what the component meanings are, what the meanings of the component words are.
Right.
To define it.
Sure.
Where the lexicographers quite often simply turn to the church and ask them, how do you define, what, and that's the definition that that their dictionaries reflect.
Right.
And when we get to Liddell and Scott, you see that very rarely, but when we get to Sayer's Greek lexicon and Strong's lexicon, we see that quite often.
Yeah, and as we found out also very often in the New Testament, the word ecclesia, which is Greek for congregation, is often translated as church, which means the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. That's their definition, but that's not what the Greek means, right? So
it definitely doesn't mean that. And when I study Scripture, I only want to know how secular Greek writers use the words, or how it was used in the Septuagint.
Right.
Because when you read the Apostles, the Septuagint was definitely a major literary impact on them.
That's right. That's their source. That's their reference for the Old Testament. That's right.
And in most cases, yeah.
In most cases, yeah.
So I have a, I sat and pored over the Hatch and Redpath concordance to the Septuagint, which lists every Greek word in the Septuagint. Right. I've had it with me my whole time,
right.
doing this, and it's 2,000 pages.
Sure.
And it's pretty tedious, but it's work that has to be done.
Right.
Well, when you have a problem with how a word is to be interpreted in the New Testament, and that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Now the reason why the word goy, the Hebrew word goy, 1471, is translated or defined as, because it's really not translated as that. Most of the time, it's actually translated correctly as nation. Okay. If you the nations of Genesis 10 are a perfect example, where those nations were all kindred nations, related to each other, okay? Yet the word Gentile appears. Well, how can brothers be foreigners of each other?
Well,
it's ridiculous.
Can.
It's ridiculous. But this is the Jewish definition. That's why it appears in Strong's Concordance, because the Jews define Goyim as non-Jews. Okay?
Well, right. Well, even by the time of James Strong, I mean, Schofield was right around that same era, and the Christianity was already being Judaized.
That's right. Yeah, and unless you have a real old copy, this is a 1976 edition. Unless you have a really old copy that may have some original definitions without these Jewish ones added, you could make a fair comparison. Okay. Now the other factor here with the word Gentile, as they define it, as the Jews define it for themselves, it means non-Jew. That's exactly how they use it wherever it appears, okay, in Scripture. But that word is not, that expression non-Jew does not appear anywhere in the Bible, Old Testament or New Testament. So how can it even be a definition if it's not even used anywhere? Okay? You get my point? It doesn't appear in the Bible. That expression,
absolutely. It doesn't belong in the Bible, period.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a Latin word that doesn't belong in Scripture in a translation from Greek to English.
Yes, and even in Latin it means kinsman. It doesn't mean foreigner. So they have just butchered this word Gentile. It simply does not belong in the Scriptures. And nation and race are usually the best translations of goy. Okay? Now, and one more is Jew. Because the vast majority of people, even within identity, some people still don't get this, that Jew is not equal to Judah. Okay? The word Jew has been inserted by the Jews into the Bible as a replacement for the word Judah. Okay? So if you don't understand that Jew certainly does not belong in the Old Testament in any way, shape, or form, because the word Jew, where it appears, is always translated from the Hebrew Yehudi, which only means Judah. It means the people of Judah or Judah himself. That's the only possible definition. And the Judahites were not Jews. The Jews that we know of from the Scriptures are those Edomites pretending to be Judah, or those same Edomites pretending to be Israelites. And so you have to understand that the true definition of the word Jew is one who pretends to be Judah. You cannot equate Judah and Jew. You simply cannot. Okay?
Well, just like we can't take most people that call themselves Americans today.
That's right.
And imagine that the founders of this nation were composed of like ethnography. Well, we can't take the people that call themselves Jews today and just take it for granted that Judah 3,000 years ago was one of these people.
That's right. That's right. It's a totally different ethnic group. Totally different ethnic group. For one thing, the Judahites were direct descendants of Judah, who was a descendant of Jacob, okay? And his offspring through Tamar, Pharez, and Zerah were pure-blooded Israelites, therefore Judahites. There was nothing wrong with their genetics. And every descendant through Pharez and Zerah is a Judahite, period. Not a Jew, okay? Now, the Jews have come along and pretend to be Judah. They also pretend to be Israel. But, does that make them Israelites? Does that make them Judahites? No.
Well, this just proves that, we need an understanding of history often to make determinations about language, especially when we come in touch with nationalities and races of people.